The letter from the fertility clinic was a live wire in my hands, buzzing with a future I'd been told was impossible. For 5 years, through 2 marriages and a small fortune, the result was always the same: a single, devastating line. But this was different. I tucked it into the inner pocket of my blazer, the crisp paper against my heart. I had to tell him. I had to tell Julian. The walk from my modest clinic to his world of steel and glass was always a study in contrasts. My life was soft edges and quiet hope. His was hard lines and unyielding power. I met Julian Thorne when he stormed into my practice, a king in his domain, demanding I treat his head of security for a severe panic attack. He'd seen the way I calmed the terrified man, my voice a steady anchor in his storm. He'd looked at me not as a servant, but as a discovery. That was 6 months ago. 6 months of a whirlwind courtship that felt more like a claiming. He was 6'4" of calculated grace, with eyes the color of a winter storm, and a mind sharper than a surgeon's scalpel. He built empires from nothing and broke men who stood in his way, and for some reason I still couldn't fathom, he wanted me. Ilara, his assistant, Anya, greeted me, her smile not quite reaching her eyes. Everyone in this tower was a little afraid of Julian. I was learning to be too. He's in a meeting. You can wait in his office. His office was a penthouse sanctuary, all floor-to-ceiling windows and minimalist art. It smelled of bergamot, old books, and cold, clean air. I paced, my fingers tracing the embossed letterhead through my blazer. Asterisk, pregnant. 8 weeks. Viable, asterisk, the words echoed in my mind. The door opened and closed with a soft click. I turned. Julian stood there, having dismissed his people with a single glance. He didn't speak. He never did at first. He just absorbed. His stormy eyes traveled over me, missing nothing: the slight tremor in my hands, the way I held my blazer closed. "You're agitated," he stated, his voice a low rumble that vibrated in my bones. "I need to talk to you," I said, my own voice sounding thin. He moved to his desk, pouring 2 fingers of whiskey. "Talk." My courage faltered. How did you tell a man like Julian Thorne that his carefully controlled world was about to be irrevocably altered? That the quiet therapist he'd plucked from her life was carrying a vulnerability he could never anticipate, never fully control? "Julian, I began, but my words tangled. I thought of the article I'd found last week, buried in financial news. The takeover of Atherton Corp. The CEO had unexpectedly retired after a hostile bid from Thorne Industries. Rumor said Julian had destroyed him, not just professionally, but personally. I'd seen the cold satisfaction in his eyes when he'd read it. A monster, the world whispered. A necessary one. "You've been distant for a week," he said, stepping closer. He didn't touch me, but his presence was a physical force. "You flinch when I reach for you. You look at me as if you're seeing a ghost." His eyes narrowed. "What aren't you telling me, Ilara?" He cupped my chin, his thumb stroking my jaw. The touch, usually so electrifying, felt like a brand. I pulled away. "I saw the Atherton file on your tablet," I whispered. "The things you did to that man, his family." His expression didn't change, but the air in the room went cold. "That is business. It has nothing to do with us." "It has everything to do with us," I cried, the words bursting out of me. "That's who you are, Julian, and I can't." "You can't what?" he asked, his voice dangerously soft. "You knew who I was when you let me into your bed, when you let me worship you, when you cried my name into the dark." He stepped forward again, backing me against his desk. "You can't separate the man from the monster now, my love. It's a little late for that." Tears welled in my eyes. In a frantic move to put space between us, I shoved away from the desk, stumbling. My blazer swung open, and the crisp white envelope fell from the inner pocket, skittering across the polished concrete floor. We both stared at it, time-stretched, taut and silent. Then he moved, a predator's grace, snatching it up before I could even breathe. "No," I pleaded, a desperate sob tearing from my throat. "Julian, please." He ignored me, his eyes scanning the clinic's logo, his brow furrowed. Then, with deliberate slowness, he pulled out the single sheet of paper. I watched his face as he read it. I saw the exact moment his brain decoded the clinical language. His formidable composure shattered. The paper trembled in his hand. His knuckles were white. The storm in his eyes stilled, replaced by a dawning, terrifying awe. He looked from the paper to my stomach, then back to my face. "Laura," he breathed, his voice raw, stripped of all its power, leaving only a vulnerable, shocking hope. I could only nod, tears streaming down my face. In 2 strides, he was before me. He didn't touch me roughly. His hands came up to frame my face, his thumbs wiping away my tears with a shocking tenderness. "A child," he whispered, his forehead leaning against mine. "Our child." I was scared. I choked out. "I didn't know how to tell you," I thought. "I thought you might see it as a complication, a weakness." He made a sound, half groan, half prayer, and pulled me into his arms. He held me so tightly I could feel the frantic beat of his heart against mine. "To weakness," he murmured into my hair. "This is not a weakness, Alara. This is a dynasty. This is everything." He pulled back, his hands sliding down to rest with infinite care on my still flat stomach. "You've kept this from me for weeks," he said, and for the first time I heard not anger, but a profound hurt. "You went through this alone. The sickness, the fear, that ends now." "What are you saying?" I asked, my voice small. "I'm saying you're moving into the penthouse today. You will have the best doctors, the best care. You will want for nothing." His eyes burned with a new, ferocious light. "You and this baby are mine, and I protect what's mine." The old fear resurfaced. "Julian, I can't live in your gilded cage." "I won't." His jaw tightened. It is not a cage. It is the safest place on earth for my child. For the woman carrying my heir. His hand returned to my cheek, his touch jerked. Alara, don't you see, this changes nothing, and it changes everything. I am still the man who breaks empires, but I will be the father who builds a world for this child, a world of safety, of love. He knelt before me right there on the floor of his immense office, his hands cradling my hips. He looked up at me and the monster was gone. In his place was just a man brought to his knees by a miracle. Give me this chance, he pleaded, his voice thick. Let me prove to you that I can be both. The wolf at the gate, and the man who kneels at your feet. Let me protect you. Let me love you, both of you. I looked down at him, at this powerful, dangerous man rendered utterly vulnerable by the life we'd created. The letter had been a live wire, and it had short-circuited both our worlds. But in the sparks, I saw a new path, not one of fear, but of a fierce, possessive, all-consuming devotion. I placed my hand over his, where it rested on my stomach. Our child, our complicated, terrifying, beautiful future. Okay, I whispered, and as he rose and kissed me, a kiss full of promise and possession, I knew my life of quiet hope was over. It was being replaced by something louder, more dangerous, and more radiant than I could have ever imagined.